Okay, we are live. Okay,
Okay.
guys, please mute yourself.
Okay, hi guys, welcome again. So wonderful to be together again and learn something new. So this particular episode is following the previous three from XC files. We started with initiation. We then moved on to thermaling 1 and thermaling 2. And today we'd like to take this journey from thermaling to progressing safely and smartly to doing cross-country flying. So this is again part 1. We had too much on our table. We decided to make 2 parts. So we start with this one. Okay, and before we start, I have something very wonderful to share today. I was watching an episode called Super Smart Animals on BBC Earth. And there's a trainer of pigeons in the UK who trains pigeons for people. And he tied up, with one scientist from Oxford. And they were studying their flights and, their navigation methods. So can you mute, please? We are getting a little disturbance here. Okay. So they were experimenting, and something very interesting that is a beautiful takeaway for us as paragliding pilots. What they did was they took these pigeons, about 15, 20 of them. They drove to a place they had not been before, and they left them. And these pigeons, they could easily home and fly these 5 miles within 15 minutes, and they were back. Then what they did, they took just one pigeon, and they drove him to the same place and left him. And this pigeon went little haywire. So he was like lost, going zigzag, left, right, took maybe an hour, covered a distance of 40 kilometers just randomly, not knowing where to go, etc. And took 40 kilometers to reach back home, which they as a group could do it in 15 minutes, the same task. So a beautiful takeaway, like we keep saying that, flying together, you assist and, learn from each other, and the tasks become easy. I mean, they use magnetic field, they use the sun, they even use smells, and but they use each other. So that was one. Of course, it was a long program. And the second thing was they took them, 30 miles away, and they left them. They flew straight back, great course. They took them again. This time when they released them, they didn't follow that track. They went to the closest town. They started following, the highway. Then they went to a camping place. They followed the river, and then they came back home. So basically, they were marking the areas, familiarizing themselves, and mapping the whole area for them to be able to, navigate in the future. That is so beautiful, and they're so fantastic. And that's exactly we as pilots do. We fly a new site, we get familiar with the, thermal spots, we see the cruxes, we know the crossings, the valleys, and we do exactly the same. So that was beautiful to see. I would recommend if you can see this program. It's on BBC Earth, and it's called Super Smart Animals. Okay, so with that, we'd like to start today with a little animated video as to how it can help to fly with others. And you help each other find thermals, you help each other find better lines, and it's fun and joy to have your buddies in the sky. So you can see that's Saj, that's me, and Jets at Beer. They're in different areas, but we're keeping an eye on each other. So that's the back mountain. This is the big thermal there. Okay. So yeah, some of you may not have seen the previous episodes. Some of you may be watching this as a standalone. So I'd like to do a quick recap of what we've covered. We'll not go in details, but we are going cross country. So there are boxes we want to tick. So first is, takeoffs and landings. I must mention that you need to master your forward launches. You need to master your reverse launches, both in weak winds and strong winds, and of course in moderate conditions. You also need to be good with adapting to new sites. Like if you're used to only flying in Kamshet and Panchgani, you need to adapt to the new conditions that Beer offers, because the terrain is different, the air density is less, the winds are weaker, and your technique will need to change and you need to adapt. So you need to keep this in mind. Also, you need to be efficient with your pre-flights, your setup, fairly confident to manage, your stress levels on launch. We also don't want to introduce too many new variables, like a new glider, a new site, a new course. So that's not recommended. Maybe just one new variable, keeping that in mind. So that's a quick on takeoffs. Then about landings, you need to be fairly good, and you've been doing good landings consecutively, really well. You're familiar with different kinds of approaches, like the simple direct S approach, the L approach, the U approach, which is the aircraft landing approach. You should have really practiced them. And you should also be familiar with your glide angles in weak wind and strong wind as they change, so that you're confident with your landings. You need to be good with your precision landings in different wind conditions, because we are now going cross country. There will be outlandings. You should have practiced some outlandings at base, so that you're able to spot a good landing area for yourself and able to land safely there. So that's first, takeoffs and landings. You check that box. Number 2 is thermaling. We've covered in 2 episodes, about thermaling. So you should be reasonably good with your thermaling. You can, maybe you can be at least 50%, averaging, not getting out of a thermal. You have practiced in, weak thermals and strong thermals and smooth thermals, rough thermals. So you should be really fairly familiar and fairly good with your thermaling skills to start traveling. So that's checking the box number 2. Moving on to next, equipment and instruments. Yes, you need to have a glider that you trust, not a demanding one, because we'll be putting ourselves in challenging situations. So go for something that you've done an SIV on, you've been flying comfortably on, and not something that you've bought which is a little higher than your level. Maybe a level lower is even better. So that gives you a boost of confidence. You've checked your reserve. You've seen that it's been repacked within the stipulated time of 6 months. You've checked the pins and everything. Harness, then instruments. You've checked. They're all charged. The proper settings where each instrument is going. They are properly secured in the right places. You need to decide where to put your sat nav, where to put your radio. You can reach out in the time of need, etc., etc. So you'll be very familiar and sure with your instruments and equipment. That's the next box. Then basic understanding of meteorology. We are doing the episodes on weather, I think we've done a few. So basic understanding meaning, you can see the charts, you can, understand the sounding. You basically know, if the day is stable or unstable, how high or the cloud base is, what is the, level of the inversion today. You also know how strong or, weak the thermals are going to be, um, and what the wind is going to do. And it differs, like if you take example of Kamshet, compare it to Panchgani, and then compare it to Beer. So in Beer, we know, the wind starts like it starts in the east in the morning, turns around, goes south, and then goes west. A fairly easy sight. Panchgani is a little complex. We may know the wind direction, but there's a lot of valley effect. That is why we say, like, you can't be traveling when you're low in Panchgani, because it's a maze, and you can have, serious situations because the wind is also strong. Whereas it is more okay, like in Kamshet, the wind doesn't really change direction, but it's on the higher side, so leads are really dangerous compared to, in Beer, for example, where the wind is weaker. So a basic understanding of, MET, to understand, how the day will evolve, what's a good time to launch, for example, and how, the lapse rate or the density or the pressure is going to affect. If you know this, is only going to help you. So that's next. Other preps, what we mean is, you've got your water bag, you've got your P tube all set. It doesn't, complicate things for you at the takeoff. You checked out everything. Like first time when I started to use a P tube, I had to, do a few practice runs in Kamshet before I could, take it to Beer and then, actually use it. And still you mess it up sometimes. They're very interesting episodes with a lot of pilots, but then it's better you sort all this out. So then things like your phone, you've got the emergency numbers. Like Jet mentioned, Jet's mentioned in his episode that you've got your first aid kit, you've got your rescue kit, you've got a hook knife, a torch, and maybe some money in case you land somewhere and you need to travel back. So all these details, you need to tick the box. So yeah, I think that's the recap, and we're ready to transition now. But before that, a few pointers. Right, Sach?
Okay, thank you, Avi. So yeah, before I begin, I just wanted to say that when we were preparing this program, we realized that how much ever we try to condense the knowledge, it's still like an ocean. So what we have tried to do is keep things as simple as possible, as much as you can relate to, and nothing complicated. All the concepts are pretty easy to understand. As Avi beautifully started with the recap, so I hope now we are all geared up, and then we are now understanding the nitty gritties of doing a cross country flight. Meaning now we have taken off, and now what happens after you have topped up the thermal. So all these things we will be covering. So some key pointers. So I just got some. I've just got some statistics for you. So I personally, from my experience, I've realized the takeoff timing really matters a lot. I'll just quickly show you a very interesting image. Now, as you can see on the screen, the first table shows different flights, which are generally long cross-country flights, 200 and 100 Ks plus from Beer. And the second table shows a few flights from Panchgani. And if you look at the timing, there are pilots who have taken off at like 9:45, 9:15, 10 o'clock, and they have achieved this really nice long duration flights. But in Panchgani, you would not see anyone has taken off at like 9:30 or even 10 or even 11:30 and done a good cross country. So this is something which really matters. As a matter of fact, as a pilot, you should know how the meteor works, how a particular site works, and accordingly you are actually planning your flight. Not that you have just started something very randomly. everything has reason and logic. And based on the history, now new pilots who are wanting to their personal best, they time their flights accordingly. Now, as a newbie, this is something which I'm not saying that you guys start doing this, like start taking off in Beer at like 9:30, but this is a very good reference to have. As a pilot, I would personally go on the takeoff at 9 at this time, and I would see how the pilots are preparing themselves, how they're taking off, how they latch onto the first thermal. This is very interesting. And there will be a day where actually you will be going through this and you will be doing all these things. So that becomes very interesting. So that's the first point which I wanted to make. Just to add on to some more facts, again, this is something which again I want you to relate to, maybe not now but later. Like in competitions, there are some pilots who are actually, even there is a window of 1 hour to for each and everyone to take off. It is also part of the strategy of a pilot that exactly at what time he will take off, and that comes from his knowledge of the meteor and how the day is going to evolve. Okay, so that's about the takeoff. Now, spot landing skills. I think, I'm sure you guys must be feeling that there are certain topics we are talking again and again and again, but it is coming across again and again because it is that important. Meaning, if you are doing a thermaling and now you top the thermal, and now you are taking a decision to go from point A to point B. But this particular skill, if it is there in your pocket and you know that I can manage a tight situation in landing, if there is a very limited spot, I know I can manage. If you have that, then and if you know that on that route there are at least 2 landings which I know I can manage, now you can be stress free. You can utilize that energy in observing and doing better stuff which will help you in the cross country flight. But now imagine if you don't have that skill and now you are going on that transition, you will not be able to give your best. You can appreciate and imagine there are pilots who are like experts and who are flying from years and have done many such landings which are in a tricky spot. Even they have faced incident. So even though you have skills, still things can go wrong. Now imagine the kind of risk you are taking when you don't have skills. So that's why the next skill which we talked about is spot landing. It's one of the key skills to have when you're doing cross country flying. Now, next thing is observation. I mean, read any article, read any book. One of the key thing which you will read about in XC flying is observation. The whole game is about observation. I'll just show you one photograph now. This is Panchgani. Can you guys just in the comments, what do you think? Like, you are now in this thermal. You are maybe at just about maybe 100 meters above the mountain. And now you have to take a decision that, okay, what's my next move? Now, just looking at the picture in front of you, what all things which you are able to catch? Can you just be allowed and just say what do you think? Let me open the chat. Okay.
Guys,
Anyone?
if you want,
yeah, evaluate where I probably, very good, very good. So Prashant sir is saying evaluate where I probably get my next thermal. Mild winds, thermals kicking off. Okay, very nice. I think someone was coming on and wanting to say, you guys can come on and you can share your views also, other than putting it on a chat. Lots of ridges, very good, Jacob. Spines, very good. Thermal trigger between green and brown fields. Okay, between green and brown fields. Okay, very good. Now we are talking. Observation, observation, observation. Okay, but what are you observing, Pradeep? Nice. I'm really happy with what you guys are saying. It's really good stuff. Landing, very good, Saad. I mean, see, everyone is looking at a lift and we have forgotten about landing options. So very good start, landing areas. Short list where I can land in case I don't get good lift. Very nice. Very good, Prashant sir. Easily be able to decide my right and left limits, can define my landing spot. Very good. I'm very happy. Now let's see from as when we are flying, then what we can look into. Yes, Sandeep, go ahead. Sandeep? I think Sandeep, that was by mistake. So I'll move. Okay, so you can see on the screen, I've put some pointers. Okay. So blue sky, no clouds, probably a high pressure day, or maybe it is too early, either one of us. But mostly high pressure, Panchgani, Kamshe, these areas, October, November, not October, but November, December, Jan, Feb, generally high pressure. Flats may not work because I don't see much of a sign of any lift over the flats, no clouds. Cannot cross the lake. Right now, if I want to take a decision, if I want to cross the lake and go on the other side, I'm too low. I have to fuel in, I have to gain height, and then only I will be able to cross. So, okay. Ridge on the left is sunnier. It is sunnier, I would say. There are certain shadows also. So sun is not exactly heating up the slopes, but maybe it would be just a start. Ridge and fingers on the left and right are my best possible options, provided I am considering where the wind is coming from. Because again, we are in Panchgani, this is not Bir. If it is Bir, I would not be so much worried about the wind. Again, that is coming from the experience. Bir is more of a valley and anabatic flow, but Panchgani is that plus meteor winds. Then we'll have to be careful. I just said it. We'll have to be careful about wind direction to avoid the lead. And clouds are on the ridge line. So if you can observe, I will remove the text and you will see these clouds. They are not like on the lake or on this green patch. They are generally on the higher terrain. And that gives me an idea that the clouds are on the ridge line. So if at all I cross over here, I at least should have height so that if the wind is head on, I can do some dynamic soaring, ridge soaring. And when I reach on the top, there will be some triggers which will help me to gain height. So that's how when we are thermaling, when we are slightly on a lower side, you actually look for all these markers which are on the ground. But when you are high, now you have different kinds of markers. So now this is Panchgani and we are almost at around 3,000 meters. The ground is around 1,100. So we are almost like 2 kilometers above the terrain. And you can see beautiful inversion layer. Nothing is going beyond that. And all the red dust is coming and stopping there. So there's a nice horizontal line. So now again, question for you guys. Please say what all markers you can spot to see where the lift is. Where is the area where you won't get too much of a sink? Very good. Observe pilot in the front. So Sandeep is saying that's the best, I mean, a marker when you're high and you have a beautiful 3D view in front of you and you can actually see what's happening. So lift along the watershed. There's no water here. Jed, along the spine. Yes. So if you can see this mountain, so the ridge is going on the south and north. And now top of the mountain is the place. Exactly on top of it, you will see all the stratus type of clouds are spreading across. So staying over the ridge is something which I can make out of this. When I want to take a decision to go left or right of the ridge, I would prefer I stay in the center. And now there are pilots in front of me. They will help me to understand. Very good. Then depending on the wind direction along the ridge. Okay, very nice. So yeah, depending on the wind direction, beautiful. This is something which we are going to come at, that wind plays a big role when you are planning your route. Rohit is saying, very good, Rohit, is a lot of points. Stay above inversion under thickest cloud, which will give you the maximum lift. Connect cloud lines, use other gliders as control decisions. Very nice. Thank you, Rohit. Perfect. So again, I've jotted some points. You can clearly see on the left side of the screen where the text is right now, it's all blue. So you can fairly assume that there is not much of a lift here. There's lift over the higher terrain. So you will stick to the higher terrain. You will follow the clouds. As Rohit rightly said, you will see the thickness of the clouds and accordingly will make your move. Then as I said, higher terrain, always go towards the higher terrain. That's the key. And that will give you the maximum lift. Even when you check the weather forecast, you will actually see that the maximum lift is on the higher terrain, because the maximum, the terrain is actually defining the aerology around it. Lower the terrain, the base will be less. Higher the terrain, the base will be higher. Other gliders, that's why, especially in competitions, in beer, places where there are a lot of pilots, if there are other gliders in the skies, that's like a great help. And now, luckily, I'm very high and I have so many markers here. There are like very small 3 gliders here. So I'm observing what's happening low as well as what's happening in front of me. This guy is on the left, these pilots are on the right. So I already have 4 lines in front of me which are giving me results. Brilliant. I mean, what else do you want? So you just follow the pilot who is actually lifting and follow that line. Yeah, I just said it, line chosen by the pilots. Inversion and stability. So this is something which is very interesting, which I actually understood in Panchgani. Thermals breaking inversion. So when you reach at the top of this stability or an inversion layer, now nothing is going beyond that. That's a maximum thermal strength. But there are times the thermals are so strong, it can break the inversion and it can go beyond that. And it is actually very visible here. If you can see on the left-hand side, it's all blue. But here, see, look at this cloud here. You can see on the cursor, the black stuff which has gone. So we call this as, oh, that's broken the inversion. And now here, if you go, you can still be able to gain height. So that's very interesting, right? So yeah, so that's about observation. I mean, just merely by looking at this photographs, we could, gain a lot of information. There are like millions of things, but yeah, this could be our starting point. Okay. Avi, you want to add something?
No, it's pretty good. We can move ahead because they're all, all the points are connected.
Yeah, so you can continue. Yeah.
So
yeah, Sachin, Rohit here.
Yes, Rohit, go ahead.
Just something that I wanted to mention. I mean, you were giving a lot of importance to the gliders on the left-hand side or what they are doing, but I think they are not really thinking through. You are, as a pilot, in such a great position. You are above the inversion. You have a great control line. You have a visibility where you're getting the inversion broken. This is a time to completely forget, the underneath terrain or other pilots doing some line that they're thinking the best. I mean, you have a magical view, so use that fullest and fly the clouds. Don't fly the features anymore if you have that line, that height.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, Rohit. I totally agree with you. When, especially in the comp, or if I have my personal goal, I want to do maximize the day, I would definitely do exactly what you're saying. But yeah, as a beginner, I mean, if I won't be at such a height, even though if I'm in the middle layer and if I have the information in front of me, I have many sources to pick up from.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks, Rohit.
okay, just in continuation to what Rohit said and Sachi is saying, it's very simple that when you're higher up, you look at clues in the sky. When you're lower down, you look at features on the ground, and same goes with the gliders. But once you've established, it's good to keep an eye, and even the lower ones can surprise somebody. Starts climbing, and oh my God, how did that happen? Everybody's talking about it, but you are not aware. So yeah, I mean, maybe if you're at a level that you can, take in all this information. Okay, so yeah, but basically higher up, you look for clues and information in the sky. Lower down, you look for clues and information from the ground. Moving on, decision making based on reason and logic. Well, that's an obvious statement, but the game is, like I mentioned, it's a chessboard in the sky, and you are making an important decision every few minutes. You are making decisions actually all the time, but an important decision is being made every few minutes that will unfold your flight or will decide how the flight will go. And this decision is based on how much you know, how much you have prepared, how much you're observing, and now all this, how well your mind can process. So it can be quite daunting, and it can be a lot if you're just beginning to start flying cross country. So as we always advise, you need to go step by step, and you build the previous step, and because you build the previous step, you are now free to explore more and learn and move to the next level and build up like this. So if you're beginning your cross country flying, then you can't overload your brain too much, and you get confused and you take wrong decisions. Decision making will also include not only the knowledge, the information, but also your mental and your physical state. We generally see, like, end of the flight, people are exhausted, pilots are exhausted, they're tired, and they start to make wrong decisions, and they don't realize it's out of fatigue that they're making poor decisions. So the best advice on this would be to build your cross country skills and your knowledge base, go step by step, because there are too many considerations, and then you can put yourself in a tight situation. That's why we move on to the next point, which is patience and perseverance. So this is one big lesson you learn in paragliding, and all the pilots who've done cross country flying will share this with you, that you need to develop actually this particular quality of patience, because it does take time to get these skills and to develop this knowledge base. To you can get lucky, of course, like you get lucky on a good day and you do a great distance, but to consistently do it, to consistently be able to read the day and maximize it, is an art that will take a lot of time, will take a lot of patience, and will also need perseverance. Because like I mentioned in the write-up on the Facebook when I posted about this episode, that it's very rewarding, but at the same time it's also very frustrating, and people generally kind of give up as well. I mean, sometimes it's just patience pays. You're in a thermal, and you keep falling out, and and you give up, you get frustrated, and you fly out. But somebody else kind of pushes it, tries more, and then he gets it, and that's very, very rewarding, and that gives a big boost to your confidence, and you realize that, okay, maybe a little bit of patience, but it always pays. So a lot goes into this particular skill to progress. You can do flight analytics. So once you've flown, you want to download your flight, see it on ivory, and see what the decisions you took, what went wrong. And once you know really how to analyze your particular flight, you can then, study other pilots' flights, and then you can, download many flights and then do a comparative study and improve your, knowledge base in a big way like this. So all this needs like a lot of patience and perseverance. So once you, start getting success in this game, that will, propel you to, go further. And it becomes really interesting, and really it becomes really enjoyable to, do flight analytics, study your flight, compare it with the others, and then see, how strong the thermals were, how actually strong the climbs were others flying, smarter than me? Were they climbing faster than me? Were they flying faster than me? Were they taking better decisions compared to the decisions I made? So you can enjoy this and get good at the game. But yeah, I mean, that's why we put this here. Patience and perseverance are big lessons in the game and will go a long way, in making you a competent and safe XC pilot. For those, who are transitioning from ridge soaring to thermaling, thermaling is more challenging than ridge soaring, and that's why, it's also more fun. Better the challenge and bigger the fun. So you'll enjoy that. And once you start to thermal, then when you climb a invisible thermal, not only the perspective or the view gets like amazing of the stunning valley or whatever landscape, but you have refueled yourself to now start to travel. So to say, in one way, you have kind of earned a move to now go further. So it's step-by-step process. You climb a thermal, you earned, you refueled yourself, and now you can travel for a bit before you find the next one. And then again, you climb in another one, again, you've bought yourself another move. So that's the, journey and the process. We move on to ability to fly long flights. Well, in the beginning, practice flying longer, do longer ridge soaring flights to improve your, stamina to fly longer. Get familiar, with your physical state and your mental state when you fly longer. See how tired you get or fatigued you feel. And then practice, like finding solutions to those challenges. You will need to learn to relax. You will need to learn to focus. You need to learn to breathe and learn to refresh yourself and constantly rejuvenate yourself. So this are the few pointers that help you to be able to fly longer and improve your stamina. So for example, you're in a thermal and you're reached the top point. If you're practicing, just floating around in the sky and enjoying the beautiful view. It's a privilege to be in the sky. The most important part of flying is enjoying flying. So enjoy the view, enjoy, looking at the sky or flying with the birds. And this kind of feeds your soul to feel joyful. And then, you're ready, to focus again. So like this, you have gaps wherein you totally relax, you breathe easy, you can sing a song to yourself and relax your muscles to take up the next challenge again. So this kind of, will help you to be able to fly longer and build your stamina. So you can slowly increase from 1 hour to 2 hours, 2.5 to 3 to 4 hours. You'll also discover, what are your, peeing habits. If you, finding yourself, like I want to pee after 2 hours, okay, I better go in for a pew tube, or I change my, drinking habits. I don't drink too much, and the kind of, food I decide to take And these kind of factors will start to come in where, will help you to, fly longer and build up your stamina for longer duration flights. So you'll have to gradually progress and, work towards this. Also, if you're feeling tired, for example, like hands feeling tired after 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, then okay, maybe I need the upper body strength. So maybe some core exercises and upper body, strength building. And then you see that, oh my God, like I did that for a few months and my stamina just increased by an hour and a half or 2 in the sky. So yeah, I mean, as an athlete works, as a sportsman works, like you can, develop your stamina like this. And of course, now is a good time, to do yoga and some kind of fitness to prepare, to fly longer. So yeah, that's about building a stamina, flying stamina. Okay, Sach.
Avi, I just would like to add a couple of points, not more than 2 minutes. So decision making based on reason and logic. So I again always relate to me as a newbie, what mistakes I used to do. So generally, sometimes on a good day, you gain height and now you don't know, "Achha, abhi kya karna hai? Abhi kya karu next?" You're so blind. But now you guys are going through all this information, knowledge, readings. You will have something with you which will help you to take a well calculated decision, and it won't be a blinder. I mean, knowledge is like your eyes. And I personally felt that time on a good day, I used to feel, Arey, it was good opportunity, but I missed it. I'm sure someone like Rohit, Sajid, all the senior pilots who are into XE, they would agree to this. And then patience and perseverance. It's again something which I have learned in a big way, where I initially 2-3 years you just like take off and you see everyone else doing great flights and you are on the land, and that is something which really frustrates you. But I think this is the progression of every pilot. If you take any flights of any newbie, you will see a lot of track logs where the person is just at the one reach and just trying hard. I have not seen a single pilot whose initial track logs are like very clean, he's gaining height and transitioning. It does not happen. So accept that this is going to happen. This is something which is going to be there. Okay. And the next point, ridge soaring to thermaling, is basically Kamshit pilots. We struggle. I personally feel that we have tendency to stick to the ridge, and we don't really leave the ridge and think of going to the next mountain or into flats. So again, all this information, the knowledge of the weather and all these things will help us to let go this block and progress. Okay. So anyone, you guys want to add anything to this? Rohit, Sajid, any senior pilots, please feel free to do so. We have a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is when you measure distance covered in XC, is it the linear distance point A to point B, or total ground covered distance that includes orbits? So we don't include the orbits. It is point to point measurement of the distance. Again, there are such different ways of doing it, which is later. We can discuss it sometime later, sir. Like flat triangle, FAI triangle, and open distance, but we will discuss that later. But yes, it is point to point. And Yusuf is asking, Sachin sir, it would be great if you can get reference book name for learning more on ridge and thermal soaring. Okay, so there are ridge soaring. You don't need a book. It's fairly a simple skill, but then APPI manual is a good reference. Our theory topics is a good reference. And of course, there are some good books. So we will put the names of the books on the club page. Okay. Guys, anyone want to add anything, or should we move on?
Sachin, just a couple of points on that.
Yes.
Getting started with. So just wanted to add that I think you covered that already, that after you get hired as a newbie, you'll be confused now what's next. And that's a classic mistake. I think you pointed out very nicely. Just want to take it a little bit further, that you should have a plan in your mind ready for at least covering, let's say, 2 to 3 ridges or whatever your target is. And
Absolutely.
you should have a plan in mind that if this is what I want to do, that means I have to give myself at least 2 to 3 different lower thermals that I can catch in case I couldn't catch the higher one, right? Because you are
Right.
at disadvantage. You have just learned thermaling. You are not at the level that if there is a thermal, you know for sure you'll climb it. So that means you need to give yourself a leeway. If I can't do it this particular thermal, I can catch the lower knuckle thermal. If for some reason, even not that, even lower. So that gives you a couple of options to save yourself and continue your flight and safely come back on the main landing. Typically, you would see pilots, they'll get one, top of the thermal, they'll immediately rush to the next point, and that next point, they'll climb a bit, but they won't really take it all the way up. And then they'll third. By doing that repeatedly, second or third, they'll be so low, then they resort to what they know is like, barely scratching very close to the terrain, trying to save the flight. So have a clean plan ready with your instructor or with your own preparation. And if you have it ready, then it can be so fun and relaxing, because till the point you again climb the second ridge all the way top, you do not want to move to the third ridge. Take it slow. It's not a race to do in your early days, race to do it in a minimum time. Rather, do it with plenty of margin, with all kinds of height, more thermals, more landing options. So make it easier for yourself. That's good.
Great. Thank you, Rohit. That was really good pointers. Okay, so we will move on. So the next topic, Avi?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we come to exactly what Rohit was talking about. So yeah, I mean, we've reached on top of a thermal, or we've taken good height, and now we need to take the decision to transition. So various factors which will decide should I make this transition or not. So again, this will vary from site to site, and it will vary from day to day. Okay. Panchgani, you'll be thinking very differently, and in Bir, you'll be thinking very differently. Some considerations: I need to know what is my altitude or how high I am. Then how much is the distance before I get my next climb or my next thermal. Then I need to have a little idea on my glide. We can give a very easy example. If you know the terrain of Bir, for example, from house thermal to +1, you need to know that if I go from here, what is the point on the slope where I'll land up. So you have a little idea that, okay, I can reach that particular altitude. I also want to consider what the wind is doing, whether it's crosswind on my transition, whether it is headwind or is tailwind. That will decide also when to go or whether not to go. In case super strong winds and you have good height, but you may decide not to go because it doesn't make sense. The winds have become too strong. You might as well head for landing. Or what are the thermal sources or triggers in front of me, and what are the chances of getting the thermal where I'm going. If the next ridge is totally under cloud cover for a long time, I can see clouds are sinking there. Well, it is pretty clear what decision I want to make. So these are the few factors that I need to consider. I also need to know whether the place I'm heading to, is it in the sun, is in the shadow where I'm going. And I also need to consider what are my landing options in case I have no lift. So you don't want to go somewhere and then start to look and then realize, oh my God, I don't have landing options. So also I want to consider if I land up very low because there's, let's say, headwind, and if I do land up low somewhere, what is the situation with rotors, and what is the kind of turbulence I can expect in case I reach the low. And like Rohit mentioned, what are my optional thermal sources en route or close by if I miss the main one that I'm heading for. Also, my understanding of the terrain and the thermal sources, which will develop as I fly more. Again, like also what time of day it is. If it is midday, I know, like that spines will work the best midday, and it'll be different, in the mornings and in the evenings. I need to be aware of that. I also know, how good the thermals are today. If I have to fight, struggle hell of a lot in this particular thermal, I can expect, similar situation there as well. But if it was easy climb, I can be more confident in my decision that, okay, thermals are working well today and it's a good time to go. And also like how high we are able to climb today, that will determine if I can, go to the second or the third or the fourth ridge. Also my observation about what are the other gliders and pilots doing, information from what is happening to them and what they are choosing to do. Like Sach mentioned in the previous one, I want to see what is happening to the gliders in the sky in front of me, and what is happening in the pilot's mind, what decisions they are making. All this information is helping me, to take the decision. Also, how am I feeling? Whether I'm tired already, like today, I've flown for 2 hours, I'm on the top of my game, I'm feeling excited, I don't feel tired. Consider how long, you've been flying. And, all these factors I mentioned a lot, but all these kind of, go for a good informed decision to be made. So with experience, the factors that decide your moves will change, and they will initially we'll be consciously thinking these things, and as we through practice and through experience, this start to become even unconscious decisions. Like it's all calculated, it's all seen, it is familiar, and I just move because I've actually unconsciously thought of all this and I've moved. So initially I take very conscious, slow decisions. With practice experience, I start to make these decisions fast. I gather and process information faster, and it starts to become unconscious, and I start to fly 2 kilometers ahead of my glider, or 5 kilometers ahead of my glider, and maybe 10 kilometers ahead of my glider with experience. Okay, so any questions around this decision to transition?
So we can show one video, small video,
Okay.
and
Okay.
we can just walk through the decision making on this transition.
Okay, so you can do that. You're flying.
Yes. Yeah. So we are in the thermal. You decide to move ahead. Now you saw there was a ridge below, but I have enough height. I don't have to necessarily stop because I can easily move on to the next one. Again, a typical beginner's mistake is you're not sure and then you stop over and you lose a precious altitude. But if you you waste time. So let's move on. And now where we are pointing when we are transitioning from point A to point B. So this is a place you can look at the shape and contour of the mountain. So this is kind of facing towards slightly north. This is east facing. And then on the other side, which we can't say is south. Right now, depending on the time, so right now this is around like 10:30. This face, which is southeast, which is nicely cooking, you will point your glider directly there and not somewhere here. You don't want to end up in a, this is not a dangerous lee because there's not much of a wind, but then it's not a lifty area. So I point my glider here and then I expect a thermal. So let's see, I get something, you gain height, and then immediately you move. Again, next knuckle. So this is the beauty of Veer, like reliable factor is very high. Here, I have done this route, so we know that, okay, if I want to reach that mountain, what is the bare minimum altitude? So we generally say 2,500 meters. If I have that, if I know my glider, if I know the kind of air masses, I just don't waste time. I just keep on pushing. So I had a choice to actually thermal up and go beyond 3,000, 3,500, but I decided to go straight. But as a beginner, when I'm just flying in a more relaxed way. I don't have any agenda. I am not thinking of big numbers. I'm just considering my safety. I would actually fuel here good amount so that again I don't have to be in a tight situation where I am low, scratching, and then gaining height. So you see, all these factors are actually considered when you're taking a decision. So sometimes there are just couple of turns and the pilot is moving on. So yeah, this is the crux of XE. When you are doing a transition, what all things you are considering and what all things are considered when you are taking any decision. Okay. Okay, Avi.
Okay. Okay, so this slide is a little displaced, but the next point is choosing best possible lines. So yeah, like in the beginning, it's good to, stay high. So staying high, you have good glides and you have height even to, reach landing areas. So it's a safer bet and you have more options open to you. So in the beginning, when you're learning cross country, gain maximum and then make your moves. It's the safest and the best way to go. Choosing the best lines. So yeah, as you grow as a pilot in XE, the circles start to become lines. So that's the trend now. If you see a track of, let's say, Maurer, you will see like hardly any tumbling happening, and he's just choosing good lines and he's just traveling straight. So what used to be more circles is now XE flying is more of lines, and we slowly move from circles to lines with experience. In the beginning, it's good to observe other pilots, other gliders who are in the vicinity, to choose the best lines, because they show you what's happening. If I'm at a particular altitude and I see 2-3 gliders in front of me transiting and I'm also there, I see which one is gaining or losing minimum. I can just slide and just follow that line. So I lose the minimum, or maybe they are sinking, but I'm maybe on a good line, so I don't need to change. I should change the least, because I can't be going zigzag and losing all my altitude as well. So different strategies you'll be engaging when choosing lines for mountain flying, and different for let's say flatland flying. So you want to talk here, Sach? You got some picture?
Yeah, so yeah, just about choosing a line. So I remember we were doing this flight together and I was following you, and you chose one line, and I thought that, okay, this line would work, because generally I joined pick up the thermal somewhere here. This was my just first year, so I was just like interpreting to my best abilities. But there was a moment that you kept going straight and you kept gaining height, and I was on a line which I kept sinking, and I just kept hoping that, okay, abhi jo abhi ko thermal mila hai, I should hit it somewhere, but that didn't happen. So when you see a lifty line, it's always good to just quickly move and adjust your flight path and go behind that pilot, rather than just waiting for that thermal, and your assumptions can go wrong.
Okay. So also, like I mentioned, it's always, in the beginning, especially to fly, in groups, because then, like you can just spread 100, 200 feet apart, and you can comb this space, and whichever, pilot, gets the best line, others can slowly drift towards that line. And this is how we support each other, to choose the best lines. Now, talking about, factors that decide, how to choose the best line. Again, it's an art in itself. Like, thermaling is an art in itself. Choosing the best lines is another, black art in itself. So, so many factors come in play, and only with experience, you will kind of develop, like what are the terrain features, whether it's rocky area, it's a forested area, or it's in shadow. what is the wind direction. It will determine, how it is playing with the terrain to choose, the best line for you. What is the angle of the sun? So which parts of the terrain are cooking, and that kind of decides, okay, I better follow this particular line. Then presence of clouds, especially in the flatlands, the presence of clouds determines the lines the best. For example, a cloud street is a visible best line to choose. And the presence of these clouds on the mountains will play a different kind of a role, and then they can also decide what kind of line I choose. Clouds will also indicate the kind of air mass that I'm flying in, smaller clouds or developing clouds, so I'll know. Also, what kind of wind do I have, whether it's weak, strong, little stronger wind. I know some phases into the wind will act like slope lift, so I can actually soar over them as I continue going in my direction. So good knowledge of the wind will also help me choose the best lines. Like I mentioned, midday lift generally kind of starts converging on the peaks, so to be aware of the time of the day to choose my lines. Then being aware to choose the speed bar, use the speed bar when in sync. Watch out for also like how the air mass is venturing in some the way the features of the mountain are, to avoid those from getting stuck. So various factors kind of your understanding of the terrain, the sun angle, the wind, all kind of play a part in choosing the best line. In the beginning, it is best to follow pilots, see what other gliders are doing. If they are birds, they choose the best lines without a doubt, and slowly develop this particular skill. Just like thermaling, you develop your line choosing skills. Another very important point that you will need to use your speed bar a lot. So it's good as preparation in the beginning when you are at your home site, when you're doing your comfort flying, to start practicing using speed bar as much as possible and becoming very comfortable with using a speed bar. So you will find that on transitions, to get the best glide, maybe 50% speed bar or 25% speed bar. So we'll talk about the best glide a little later again, but learning how to use the speed bar to get the best glide on transitions, using also the speed bar to do your pitch control of your glider in transitions. So the glider pitches forward, you want to ease up on the speed bar. So practicing and getting familiar using speed bar really well, using speed bar to control the pitch of your glider, using the speed bar for your best glide. And comp pilots, some of them even use speed bar in thermaling just to get an edge, over other pilots. So recommended, that you get familiar and start to use speed bar is going to be very useful and helpful. Next, as I covered, like in the choosing best possible lines point, and Sachin also showed us a picture where clearly the pilot is heading for a sunny face, and it's obvious that that's the best place to kind of head. So yeah, and presence of rocks gives you more confidence that okay, it'll be hotter, and I can expect some lift. That contrast between sun and shadow is also a good sign that there's a good chance of something going up there. Then we've talked about birds, clear sign of lift, clear sign of good lines. These are the guys, the masters of the sky, to follow in thermals and follow in choosing the best lines. I mentioned the clouds as well. We will also be covering this in the weather. Your understanding of clouds will go a long way on you understanding how the air mass is playing out today to make the best use of them. And of course, other gliders in the beginning, surely these are the main factors that I like to look at. Easy, obvious, for transitions. Next one is simple and easy, I think. Somebody can answer this, whoever wants to answer this. 2 LZs available at all the time. So this is, mitigating risk, increasing a safety point, and a must have. Otherwise, you find yourself, losing altitude and ideas, really fast, and options kind of closing. Quickly, somebody can answer this. Okay. Yes, somebody's come.
Are you asking about the 2 landing zones of planning while doing transition?
No, all the time. All the time.
All the time.
Yeah, as you're moving, you have, like landing option there. Why?
Yeah, because the highest chance of sinking during transitions, anytime basically, then you need to plan or keep in mind where if you find greater sink, either you have a thermal option or you have a landing option at every possible time, and you have mapped it or have done some level of research on that area.
So yeah, of course, that's the answer. Like, especially in the beginning, guys, you can't be traveling without landing options available for you. This is where, it is bad flying, it is poor decision making, and, putting yourself at risk. You have a landing, you can glide. Worst case scenario has been thought of. Now you're free to really focus on, your thermaling, or catching that low level thermal, which is really weak. You can focus on it. Then be divided. Oh my god, if I don't catch this thermal, I didn't leave this option for me. Oh my god, what should I do? And when you're in 2 minds, you need to avoid a situation where you're in 2 minds in flying, because you're losing very precious time. So whenever in 2 minds, and just quickly choose the lesser option and say, okay, you were not prepared and you already have made mistakes, and you don't want to make further mistakes. So it again boils down to decision making. If your decision making is smart and you develop it really well, it'll go a long way in the future to make you a safe, competent, good XC pilot. So I'm at a place, and I'm thinking, okay, should I cross this valley or not? And okay, if I do have a landing area, it helps me take a decision. Yes, I go for it. I can take this risk, and there's nobody there, and there are no signs. I don't know, there may be just a thermal in the forest above that knuckle, maybe, I don't know, but I have a landing, so okay, I can take this chance. So this is how important this is. And you have heard so many accidents happening in Beer, people landing up on trees, people landing in this big valley before the big face, and having bad landings. Well, it's purely decision making, and they didn't have a landing zone in their mind, and they have gone further. They just follow somebody. Maybe that glider has a much better glide ratio. Maybe he's flying a Zeno, and you think, okay, he's going, I also can go, but the glide ratios really don't match. And you go down, he goes away, and now you're looking for landing area. So you need to be like really smart about all these points that we're mentioning. So yeah, I hand you over to Sach now.
Okay, yeah. So I think we were discussing about usage of speed bar, and at this moment we get aid from the instruments which we are using. It can be a mobile where you're using XC Track, or it can be Flymaster, and they have a beautiful feature called GR. So you can have a block called as current GR, and which will tell you what's your current glide ratio. It will be like a number like 8, 9, 10, 11. So when you're actually pushing the speed bar, you can put the speed bar around 20-25%, and then just see the number. If the number is actually improving, that means that profile of a glider is giving you the best possible glide ratio. But if it is deteriorating, then you can actually ease up on the speed bar, and then if the number improves, okay, then right now maybe just 10% speed bar or even 0 speed bar is giving you the best glide. So personally for me, my game changed because of this particular aid gave me a lot of confidence when I am making my next move. Anyways, all the modern gliders, be it ENA or ENB, they are actually trimmed to give you the best glide at around 20, 25, 30% speed bar. 100% speed bar will definitely reduce your glide ratio, but a little bit of speed bar actually improves the glide ratio. That's how the gliders are trimmed these days, and which is something which you can, if the manufacturer has provided you with the lift to drag graph, you can easily find that out, or you can plot it by yourself. Okay, so yeah, let's move ahead. Transitions, a few more pointers about the transition. Understanding of the air mass. So for me, understanding of the air mass, I would say as pilots, when we are taking off, when we inflate the glider and when we control the glider, that time itself, we start building our judgment of how the air mass is behaving. Plus, you have done your homework, you have checked the meteor, and you have formed a certain idea that what kind of turbulence there will be. Uh, will it be beyond my comfort level, or I think this is something which I wanted, this is the day. So you will have certain kind of idea, and the moment when you start transitioning, now you have enough time and mental space available to actually understand how the glider is moving. So when we were in Alps, when we were doing guided XC course with their local experts, they used to tell us that, okay, we are on a transition, we are going there, and now we can let go the brakes, relax. And me being a pilot from Kamshet, where generally in the afternoon, the glider is always moving, I always used to feel that, okay, this is something which I don't want to do. But then slowly, I understood that that particular air mass between transitions, the air mass was not really very challenging, I would say. So because the local pilot knew and had this information, he could tell us blatantly that, okay, don't worry, you can let go the brake toggles. It's not the best idea, I would say. uh, we will talk about it as we are going ahead in the third point. Okay, so when you understand the air mass, when you think that this is beyond my skill set, you can simply go down and land. I have had many flights, even Rohit would agree, Avi would agree, that there are sometimes there are days where you're thermaling and you think this is just not feeling right. I'm just like some kind of a feeling in the glider which will make you understand something is wrong, like especially when you are low and maybe on the lee sides, the kind of feeling you get, you also get that when there are challenging days which is beyond your skill set. So at such times, you need to take a decision that, okay, that's it, I'm not going to fly, I'm going for landing, or I'll go on the ridge, I'll just play around and I'll go down and land. So on transitions, this is something, understanding of air mass plays a very important role. All right. The next point is wind direction and soaring slope. Again, very interesting. Uh, Basically, wind direction defines your planning. People in the X contest, those who are doing FAI triangles, they get more points than the pilots who are doing flat flights, flat triangles, because the skill set required for doing a proper triangle is a little bit higher, because you need to understand that if you want to do cross country, you can't do, I mean, if you want to cover distance number, you can't do that in the down headwind landing. You need to go downwind. And if you want to do that, you really need to understand flow of the day. How, as Avi was saying, that how the anabatic wind starts in the east in the Beer, then south, and then west. And that's why you will see people, first thing they go to towards Dharamshala, because that's backwind, east wind helping them. And then second half, they're going towards Mandi, that's westerly, which is helping. So if you understand the wind direction well, the first thing is, yes, it will really help you to plan. But second thing, again, as we touch base, it will help you to understand where the rotors are. If the winds are strong, you will understand where the venturi is, where are the positive areas, negative areas. And then soaring slopes. Now, this is something interesting which I didn't know personally, but when we were flying in Alps, again, a guided XC tour where there are experts who knows the local area pretty well. And now you're just following them and understanding from them that how they are taking the decisions. So in one of the transitions, it was almost like good 12, 13 kilometers transition. And he said that, okay, guys, we just need to reach on that mountain. Once you reach there, even though you are around 200 meters low from the top of it, you will still be able to soar on it because the winds are generally coming head on. Now, this is something you can't like really spot it from the meteor very easily. I mean, it is possible, but you really have to go in super in depth. But if you have the local knowledge, this is something which helps, that when you do a particular track again and again, you will know where my next thermal is. You will know most of the things around the area. So there are moments that some slopes are perfectly headwind and you can actually use those to gain height. Once you reach anyways on the top, you will expect some triggers. Okay. Next thing, I think Praddy was also asking about this. So how do you rest your arms? So first thing I would like to say is why experts are giving so much of emphasis on this point, that when you're on transition, please rest and then rejuvenate and drink water and really sing a song and just feel good about the whole thing. Because thermaling, almost every second you are applying yourself, you're looking at your equipment, you're moving your circles, you're really engaging yourself mentally and physically. And that is pretty challenging. All the juice in your body, it is getting used most of the time in thermaling. But in transition, more or less, you are following a straight line. You are maybe on a 25-30% speed bar, and now you're observing. So now this is the time you can actually get back your energy. You can really relax. You can get attention to your hands and see if they're tightened or, oh, they're tightened. Okay, let me relax. My legs can be relaxed. And if you're just as a hobby pilot, you're doing cross country, you don't even have to use the speed bar. You can actually use your legs to relax and use this time to actually drink water, maybe have snacks. Okay. Now, how do we relax? The arms is basically either you can use the risers and touch your arms, or you can take both the brakes together, get one hand down, then with the other hand, again, you can get the brakes and get the other hand down. Or if the air mass allows you, if you feel confident, you can let go the brakes and get both the hands down. Okay. So generally what I prefer is, because generally if you're doing efficiency flying where the speed is important, I try to make myself as aerodynamic as possible, go really deep down in the harness, your hands behind the risers, maybe they're touching it a little bit so that it is relaxed, and then you are reducing the drag also. So yeah, that's about resting your arms. And then of course, I think we talked a lot on this, observing and planning our next moves. So when you are on a transition, you are observing each and every bit of information you have. And as even Rohit was mentioning, you have plan A, plan B, and even in fact, in flight, you may have plan C, that you see something is like really developing on that side. Okay, I will cancel my plan and I will go on the other side. Okay. So yeah. So I see something on the chat. So for long, Yusuf is asking for long flights, what is more important, strength or stamina or combination of the both? Yeah, you have answered it. It is combination of both. Stamina in terms of long flights, not like really physical stamina, but if you have actually, if you have a place like Kamshet, I mean, the best place to really clock 2-3 hours of flights. And then when you're going a place like Bir, clocking 1 hour flight is not difficult, because I mean, we have talked about this, that when you are actually doing thermaling flight, even half hour of flight may feel like 1 hour or even more, because your mind and body is engaged a lot than your normal dynamic soaring flight. Okay. Now, the last point is risk assessment and developing strategies. So risk assessment, very critical at any point of time. You're always assessing the risk. Now, I would like to give few examples here. When we were in Beer, I think Rohit and I was flying, and there was one of the days, usually it happens that between start of 11:30, 12 o'clock, the big face, which is the highest part of the front ridge, there the cloud buildup starts. And then we had gone till around Dharamshala, and we were coming back. And generally when we come back, this big cloud is like, you actually assess, this is the assessment point, that this cloud is like really going haywire, or it's okay, or what's happening. And that particular day, it was, I could hear thunders. And then I felt that this is not really feeling nice. And I was lucky. I would say it is a luck, because I was in two minds. That should I try because the day is good, or should I go for landing? I chose going for landing. And then there was a big drama after half an hour. There was a big downdraft. And again, every pilot was in some the other kind of a situation, because of the whole thundering created a really massive cloud with a lot of power, and it created a very bad situation. Now, day two, similar situation. There is a cloud buildup, and I couldn't hear thundering, but still the size of the cloud and the situation was not that bright. But this time I said, okay, I would take a chance, and I went towards Mandi, which is on the other side, around 40-50 kilometers. And by the time I came back, it had fizzled out. But still, the pilots who are flying in the local area, they could face the brunt of it. So I would say I was just plain lucky that the impact of that downdraft didn't reach so far. So sometimes your decisions are based on logic, but there is an element of luck which also plays an important role. And next I would like to talk about is there's one more example which I wanted to give, is Panchgani, where G2 and I was flying, and it was a hazy day, stratus clouds, a bit darkish in color, but it didn't have too much of a vertical development. And G2 and I was flying together. He actually deliberately was a bit low, and I had gained height. And now I was in the lift, and I could see that I'm approaching the cloud base. And G2 came on the radio and he said, okay, be careful, you might go inside. And I'm like, okay, I was just thinking, okay, I've got it. I did couple of turns, and totally, there is no visibility. And I was inside the cloud, and I felt like a stupid person, that it's just like few moments, my buddy is telling me that be careful, and I just the decision making was super poor. And now I was in a situation where I was tensed. I immediately pulled the big gears, but still the vario kept beeping, and then I had to go on big gears. And that was my first time on ANC to do big gears. And the way the glider has thrown me around, I mean, I really learned the lesson in a hard way. And then that's one of the reasons that why I feel a bit nervy around clouds. So I hope that you're understanding that every point of time you are doing the risk assessment, be it in a thermal or be it on a transition. This is something which is a continuous process. You don't have to come to this point to point. This is something which is very much continuous. Okay. And the last point is around developing strategies, which I think one strategy which we already covered is how we can use your instrument, where you really understand your speed and the glide ratio. One important point, if you are planning a complete route and if you're feeding that into your instrument, now the instrument is very smart. It actually tells you that to get to the next point, what should be your glide ratio. So there is a figure which is saying, okay, 10 is the GR next, which is required, and 11 is your current one. So you would say, okay, now there is a chance that I would reach there. But again, you have to consider that there might be a sink. So if the GR next says 6 and my current is 10, now I have taken care of the difficult situations also, and there is a very good chance that I would reach. So you can actually use these devices and even the Android app XC-Track to its best capacity, and you can really improve your decision making. As any experienced pilot would say, that a best pilot is the one who actually can do without it. But I think these are really good aids available, which actually you can use and build your judgment upon. Okay. Other than this, this is a beautiful site. You can really go through thermal.kk7.ch, which shows you thermal hotspots based on the tracks submitted on Leonardo server and X contest. And then you can actually find the exact place where the thermals are. And the shade of the color shows the strong thermal, weak thermal. You can actually filter this based on time. So for particular a summer season or a winter season, which place works, you can know beforehand. Then you can spot, get the GPS coordinates of this device, of this location, put it on your GPS, form a route around it, and you are ready now. You don't have to worry about anything. You know where the thermal will be. So again, don't take it literally that every time you go there and you will get a thermal, but that's a very good help available for you. So as you can see, Kamshed, we don't do much XC, but still there are on the tower, there are some couple of hotspots, Shelar and then Pavna. But as you go Panchgani, and you will see a lot of hotspots because a lot of pilots are flying, the routes are discovered, and there is no brainer that all these hotspots are on the knuckles, on the top of the ridges, and on all the higher points. And if you see the competition waypoint, all these waypoints are already there on the website, so we can easily use it. And the next one is Beer. Again, this is almost around more than 100 kilometers area which is covered here, or even maybe more. But very interesting here, Beer, why we say it is easy, because you can see if this is the takeoff here. Sorry, this is the takeoff here. Now, after the takeoff, you have option 1, option 2, option 3. And if this does not work, you can go for landing. Kamshed, Panchgani, we don't have that liberty. So you can actually use these hotspots, put them in your GPS, and you have the complete map of your thermals. So I think that's the very good way of planning, I would say. Okay. Any questions, guys? Anything which comes to your mind about the points which we covered today? Or Rohit or Sajid or any other senior pilots, if you guys want to add any specific points which comes to your mind.
Okay, Sachin, I was
Yes.
not in the complete call. I had another call to go to. But
Okay.
what I've seen and what you've been telling me, one is that flying together really makes a big difference. From my understanding, my experience of beer is not as much as I would like it to be. But what I understand from beer is you have to be there. You have to be there. You have to go and fly. You have to go and try things. You have to figure out. You can do an analysis and go there. Like what you showed initially of the timings of the takeoff. That is brilliant. I've not seen that before. I didn't notice that before. But that's brilliant. That actually shows what really works. But having spent not as much time in beer, but in other places, what I think about XC flying is your group is very important. Like you said, flying together is very important. You have to feed off them. Everybody prepares themselves in a different way. If when I fly with let's say with Avi or with Rohit or with Viz or with Jigesh, or when I see their preparation, their motivation and their thought process and their goals are completely different. So one thing to keep in mind is to you make your own thing and feed off and take what you want from them. They might be comfortable in going back, taking the back line, or they might be comfortable up ahead. But what really works for everyone is the house thermal. If you see how everyone handles the house thermal as quickly as you can climb up and then transition, that is really interesting for me. Afterwards, you're on your own because you've got your own limits, you've got your own capacity to take the violence of the thermal or your own capacity to deal with it and then move on. And the other thing about reading the vario and really utilizing it for the right thing is important. But when that picture that you showed of that of Panchgani and you asked what next, what most of the things that people forgot, or rather what I caught, which I feel is the way I thought, was I saw the bowl.
Yeah.
So in case I miss out on any thermal, I know that I can go to that bowl and do a little bit of soaring just to keep afloat till I get the right thing. And I'm thinking that is the direction of the wind from where you've taken the picture. If that's where the wind is coming from.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of knuckles to try and a lot of alternates to try. And if I want to cross the lake, then the closest point is go to the next knuckle. The lake is the water body recedes a little bit. So these kind of decisions and thought process and how high to go is really important. But overall, my take on this is, flying with your friends and preparing before and understanding what you want to do and then analyzing, and plan C always works.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ajit.
Okay, thanks, Ajit. So just to conclude, get proper training because to develop your thermaling techniques, if somebody can see you and correct you, you can save a lot of time. You can progress fast and develop your own strategy. Okay, this is what I want to achieve first. Your level. This is what I go for next. Okay, this particular flight, this is my goal, a small goal, a realistic goal. We'll be talking this in the part 2 as well, but just to cover it up. So first, get good training. Number 2, fly. Number 3, develop your own strategy. See how you want to go. You pace it for yourself. It will be different for each of us. What I want to get, but go step by step, plan it well. And like I said, the most important part of flying is to enjoy flying. So enjoy and reward yourself and pat yourself, when you achieve stuff, and feel good about that, because that builds you, for your next step. And if you go in a methodical, smart way, it's so wow. It's so beautiful. This rare privilege that you have your wing. You can fly in Kamshet. You can fly in Panchgan, you can fly in Bir, like we went to Dehradun and flew there, we fly in the Alps and you go, in different parts of the world and, fly like a bird, like it's wow. But put in the work that is needed, do it at your own pace, develop your own strategy, which you are comfortable with, and, have fun with it. And if you're not having fun with it, see why. And, fill that up. You should be enjoying it. So yes, I think good session. We are 1 hour 40 already. If there are quick questions, we can answer. We go home. We are in home actually, at home. Anybody, anything?
I don't think so, Avi.
Cool. All right. So thank you for joining us, guys. I hope it helped. And let's keep going. We have the time, so it's good to build this strong foundation and base of knowledge and get our heads clear about concepts and get the key principles right. And it'll go a long way, I assure you, in making you an amazing pilot. And you will feel good when flying starts. We're all dying to fly. You'll be much better off. So thank you, Sach, and thank you, guys.
Thank you, Avi. Thank you, everyone.